huge thank you to CIBC for making We Get It possible.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of We Get It. If you are watching this on the day of, it is Monday, March 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern. And this is episode 7 of the season 3 podcast, We Get It, show, event, whatever you'd like to call it. And I have a special guest on. And most of the interviews I've had so far have been special guests. But what I'd like to focus on so far is more so on the Yacker experience, people who have gone through cancer primarily themselves, but I decided to switch things up today. And I actually have one of my main supporters, obviously, throughout my cancer experience before and after, to my mom, Val Mandarino. So, Mom, welcome. Glad to have you on and happy you could join me. We're going to get into some questions. We'll do a little bit of a different back and forth this week. So I think what we'll do is I'll ask you a few questions, but we'll go back and forth. So I have a set of questions for you. You have some for me that are similar or different, and we'll just kind of shoot questions back and forth and see how that goes. So sure. Hopefully everyone enjoys. I will start us off. All right. So Mom, what are 3 words that you would use to describe yourself?
One I would say is I am stubborn/determined. Stubborn, hard-headed sometimes, but I'm also determined when I have something in my head and I want to do it. I try to get it done.
Yeah.
Silly at times, I can be very silly because I like to have fun, and giving, generous. I like to do for others. I always enjoy giving back and doing as much as I can for other people.
Definitely.
Sharing, whatever.
I'd have to agree. Yeah, for sure.
About the stubborn, especially?
No, about all of it. It all makes sense. And I mean, we've obviously known each other my entire life.
Of course.
I agree with that 100%.
How about you? How would you describe yourself?
3 words. So I would probably say that I am a positive person, and that's helped me a lot through many situations. Positive would probably be 1. I would say second is probably outgoing. I know, depending on who I'm with, if I'm with someone that I've known a long time or just a group of friends that I feel comfortable with, I will not stop talking and very outgoing and like to have fun. Similar to you, silly was a great one, actually. And then I think like creative might be a last one. So I find that, depending on the situation, if I have a chance to flex creative juices or be more imaginative, I think creative would be another one. I definitely enjoy coming up with different ideas and putting them out there. I think that would be the 3rd one. Yeah. What do you think?
I think
the same.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with all of them. And some of them came out more after you got sick too, right? So
I think you're right. Yeah, definitely. That definitely made a difference for sure.
Yeah. It changes you, right?
Oh, big time. And so getting into the cancer experience, for those who don't really know you, which is most people who maybe haven't seen last year's Primetown, where I got a chance to interview you for the road trip to Primetown. Tell us a little bit about the secondary experience. So secondhand, you experienced cancer as a caregiver for me. Tell us a little bit about that experience when I was first diagnosed.
Well, when you were first diagnosed, the first thing is you're shocked, right? I mean, we thought you were sick for a couple of days, so we thought it was the flu. And then when you go back to school, we thought, okay, it probably is a flu. But then when it continued on, you never used to have headaches. You were complaining of certain things. Yeah. So when I took you to the clinic and they made us go to the hospital, it was so fast. It was like Wednesday night, clinic, get a couple tests at the hospital. And the next day they're like, it's first we thought maybe it was mono or something. And the first doctor didn't really, in the emergency room, didn't say a lot other than it's probably just a virus of some kind. Come back in 3-4 hours because it was overnight, come back to the hospital and we'll do an ultrasound. And then the second doctor said, no, there's something more than just a virus here. And then they said it's possible lymphoma, leukemia, or both. Or lymphoma. I think it was lymphoma, actually, the emergency doctor. Yeah. But there was also the chance of it could have been mono, right? So, yeah. So this happened all within 24 hours. And when we found out it was possibly lymphoma/leukemia, it's shock, right? And then when you go to Princess Margaret the next day and they say, you have leukemia, it's shock, it's fear. So the first little while, you don't even know what's happening, right? It's, you're in a hospital, all of a sudden they're admitting you into hospital. So a lot of fear, a lot of shock. They're throwing a lot of information at you. So it's just it's overwhelming. I think overwhelming was a big part of that too, right? You don't know what's going to happen, right? So
Mhm.
the first few days, it's a blur, right?
Yeah.
And obviously as a mother, as a parent, it's something you never expect is going to happen to your own child, right? And so that, as a parent, that was difficult. So I mean, secondary experience, it's difficult as a parent, I think, first and foremost, because you never want to see your kid sick, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's the shock of that, and then all you have to do to try and get, the person through it. And I also learned a lot too, right? There's a lot of people that go through things that you never, I mean, I had a really close friend that had cancer, right?
Mhm.
And I never
Mhm.
understood what she went through till we went through it with you, right? So then you
Yeah.
realize, wow, this is what it's all about. This is what people have to go through. And then you start to see, as time goes on, you see the courage and the strength of what those people are going through, which obviously was you too, right? So it's cliche to say it's a wake-up call, but it's also
Mhm.
a learning experience, or it's just an experience you're not ready for, and then you're thrown into it, and you have to kind of go through
Yeah.
and
Like
find your
adapt.
way through it, right? So, but it was a wake-up call in a lot of ways. First for you, first for life is too short to complain and worry about stuff, and all of that. It's all the cliche stuff, that they talk about, but it's
Yeah.
so true, right? It really is true. But like I said, just watching what you went through and how courageous and strong you have to be to go through that every day was eye-opening too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Perfect.
Not gonna lie,
Yeah.
it was a really hard experience.
Definitely. I
But we got
believe it.
through it. We're on the other side of it now, right? So
Yes, absolutely.
that's the most important thing. You learn as you go too, right? You learn as
Yeah.
you, because you just, every day is different. You had 2.5 years of treatment. So um, there were easier times, there were difficult times. And it teaches you what you're made of,
Totally.
it really
Yeah.
teaches you what you're made of. So we saw so much, and so much help from people too, right? I mean, you lose friends, you gain friends. It's just a whole lot of experiences in the whole thing overall, right?
Yeah.
So it's a whole
Perfect.
journey, right? So
No, 100%. Yeah,
yeah,
it really
but
is
yeah,
for
it
sure.
was it was an experience. Yeah.
Mhm. For sure.
Yeah.
Your question for me.
Let's see. What was your view about your own experience? How do you tell your viewers about your own experience?
Yes, I haven't really had a chance to go too much into it, but I know for those who might not really know me or have seen me within the Yak community, you touched on the early bits, a lot of it right away, but I was diagnosed in 2014 with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I was 20 years old in my third year of university. So really focusing on school and building a career and friends and things like that. And then obviously, like you said, it hits you right away at 20. And when the doctor, funny enough, when she mentioned lymphoma originally, I could tell that you knew what that was, but I hadn't heard that word before. So I was like, why are you so upset? You could tell that you were visibly really upset about it. I didn't really take it in. And then when they said leukemia initially, that I knew that was more of, I guess, popular is the wrong word, but it's more of a well-known common cancer term, at least for me at the time. So that was ridiculous. Is never something I expected. And it was ended up being 2.5 years of treatment on the Dana-Farber protocol. And at that point, for the first 8 months, at least, I was home with you guys, with you and dad, and kind of not doing anything, which was difficult when you're on social media, you're seeing your friends, you're talking to people your age, and they're growing and maturing. Your early 20s is when you kind of decide a lot of who you are as a person. So to not have that ability to make decisions on my own, but that was tough. And it took a long time to kind of get used to the fact that, at least for the 2 years and even after that, that would be kind of my experience. But I would say that, like, it's great having you on in this platform, Mom, because I mean, it was a group effort altogether to get through that whole experience. Like, I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it with you and everyone else that was by my side, pushing me forward on the tough days. But there's a lot of ups and downs to it. And I think we'll get into more as we talk here. But yeah, that was kind of my main overall experience. And it led me to be a really different person. I think life would have been a lot different without cancer, whether it be for the good or the bad. I think probably I'm happy that the experience at least happened now that it's all over, but definitely a very weird overall kind of experience that took a while to get through,
Yeah,
for
it's a
sure.
journey, right? Something you just
Definitely.
don't expect, right? The things you
Yeah.
worry about are the things that you may worry about all the time that don't actually happen. And this
Yeah.
just comes out of left field, right?
Yeah. So on that note, like a big portion of not having or being in the cancer experience, I guess maybe as a supporter, from what I understand, is like that idea of not having control over really the cancer. So how did you manage not having any control really? And did you try and maybe find other aspects in life to control that you could control instead?
Well, I couldn't control obviously what was happening in your body,
Hmm.
but I still remember this very clearly. The first night you were admitted to the hospital in Brampton, um, obviously again, I was fearful and, shocked and everything. But I remember, I stayed on a pull-out chair there,
Yeah.
and I remember saying to you, I had to find things to prop or to make you feel like we're going to get through this, so you knew, right, that we're all going to be there for you. So I guess the one thing I kept saying to you, and I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I said to you, you're going to get through this. Again, because we didn't really know. Yeah, I heard the word lymphoma and leukemia, but I didn't fully, to me, leukemia was death sentence. I'm going to be honest. Like the
Yeah.
only experience I thought was it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know the cure rate was as good as it was actually at the time. But I said, you're going to get through this and you're going to help others through it. That was the only thing that just kept coming to me, that I said to you, Alex, let's just try to think. This was the first night that we kind of thought that's what it was, right? They didn't know. This is when the doctor just came in and threw it at us. It's lymphoma, leukemia, or both. And tomorrow you're going for a biopsy at Princess Margaret. So I just remember that night really clearly saying that to you. And then, the only control I had was to help you mentally, emotionally, food. I researched as much as I could, to help you. What can you eat? What shouldn't you eat? Part of it was because of the steroids, you were diabetic because of that. So researching what foods that we can give you to help keep your sugar level stable, so you didn't have to take insulin, right? Because that was you had to take it sometimes, but we got you on a path of keeping it level. So for me, the only control I could have was to do anything outside of what your body was doing to assist your body, assist you mentally. And some of the other things I did were to make you feel like little experiences to help you out. Like if, I reached out to the Blue Jays, right?
Yeah.
And I reached out to the Maple Leafs to see what they could do, because, from now this experience, when you're up to 18, there's all kinds of experiences for young kids. When you're older, there's stuff, but when you're in that mid-range, there's not a lot of organizations you can reach out to. So part of it was, what can I do to give them some fun experiences to look forward to, right? So that ties into my determination and my stubbornness, right? It's like, okay, I got to find a few things that we can do that Alex can look forward to take away from the crap that he's going through. So
Totally.
Right. So those were some of the things that I tried to help you with, to control, right? Or the schooling. Another thing that comes up is, you were in the middle of November. So you were almost at the end of your semester. And it was like, well, you got to finish. It was 2 weeks before exams or semester ended.
Something like
and it
that.
was like all of a sudden you were worried about school. And the university was like, well, okay, I guess you're not going to be able to write your exams. And I was like, hell no, he's been through this whole thing. So again, how can I help that part of it? Because you were so upset about school, right? So how can I help you finish that semester? And so we worked, and I worked really hard talking to them over and over again about, we got to get him the ability to do his exams, even if it's at home. And I kept pushing one of the administrators there, and she talked to the professor. So that was the way that I could, that was my way of helping or controlling, I guess, whatever ways I could control. Because obviously I couldn't control, like I said, your body, but I could control anything that could help you, which was the mental, the emotional, and anything that would help you to feel good while you were going through it, because the mindset is a huge part of that as well, right? So that was
Definitely.
kind of how I worked through not being able to control that you were sick. But if anything I could do in my control to help you be in a good state while you were going through it, help you get through it. That was kind of how I dealt with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, when you did the Blue Jays thing and the Maple Leaf thing, that was, I saw how happy that made you too,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It was those
Yeah.
little things too, right? That anything like you got to finish school or your university that year, you got to do your exams at home and you got all your credits, even though you were still battling at the time. That was the hardest part at the beginning too, right? So
Big time.
yeah, that was kind of how I dealt with it, right? Let's do
Mhm.
everything I can to help them in other aspects.
And you did, for sure. Absolutely. Perfect.
Yeah. So why did you jump at the chance to get involved with Yak?
Yeah, well, I know one of the questions next is how you kind of heard about Yak, so I'll let you touch on
Yeah.
that. But well, it's funny because you mentioned in your earlier answer, the one I just asked, how you were like determined that this would help me help others, sort of thing. So I think when you first, it's funny because when I think you first mentioned Yak, it was more closer to when I was first diagnosed, and I think it wasn't something I was just ready for. I think I was just like more focused on my own self and my own experience. I didn't really want to get involved in the whole community of it yet. So I was like, oh, let's push it back. But I think it may have just been that as I got more into the experience, you had a bit of a hand at saying like, why not try and help others at some point? Because otherwise it's like, you're just going through this alone. Where near the end, there's a few experiences where I did notice there was other young adults, people close to my age at Princess Margaret Hospital in Toronto, that I was like, there's not many of these individuals here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of older or very, very young, but mainly older, because Sick Kids was a different hospital. But the few times I saw people my age, I'm thinking like, oh, like there are people that are probably in similar situations. And as I felt better near the end of my treatment, at least physically, mentally, there was still a lot going on. I did just kind of was like, you know what, let's just at least see what this is about. If there's other people going through it, maybe there's a couple cool people. And there was one person that we met, I think through the hospital, who took me, or we met up and chatted and talked about meeting up at the Big Cancer Hookup in, I think it was 2017 in Toronto. I watched it. And then immediately everybody there was like, you have to go to the Survivor Conference. It's so much fun. And I was like, I just met these people, all you now. I'm not going to go to some conference in 5 months halfway across the country. But I think it was like, you know what, why not? Like, I haven't done anything in 2.5 years. I've never flown on a plane before. This is the second time I was on a plane in a trip to go to Newfoundland. And it was the best decision I'd made in a long time because everyone there was amazing and super open. We could talk about whatever we wanted. You can bring up steroids and people don't think you're like cheating at baseball or some type of sport. Like they understand what that means.
Yeah.
So it worked out really perfectly. And then I was like, you know what? I've always been a very person who, like, we took dance classes when I was younger. I was in acting my whole life. So I always loved presenting and performing. And that tied into having something to talk about and being open to my cancer experience. So it was like two worlds kind of colliding and saying, well, I might as well use my experience for the better good in a position that I can tell my story. And then a lot of opportunities got involved where I could actually host things like this, or just talk to different people, attend certain events and share your story. And it just worked out perfectly. I think it was at the point where it was a group of people my age that understood. So I was gaining a lot of information and felt really confident in the person that I was becoming. And I wanted to share a lot of my experience with people. So I think that's kind of why it started, from a bit of a tidbit of you mentioning it. I know Jeff reached out really early in my treatment. I finally responded to him when I felt comfortable, and it kind of it took off from there, I think, for the most part. So yeah,
I think it ties into the fact too, you did drama in high school.
Yeah.
You're very comfortable being on stage and around people.
Yeah.
And so that's why when you first got diagnosed, that's also one of the reasons I said to you, you're going to help people, because I knew your personality, right? I saw you, like, you were so comfortable getting on a stage and talking to groups of people. In grade 7 and 8, you did those speech competitions. You were so comfortable doing that stuff. So part of me just had this feeling like you're going to get through this, and you're going to maybe use those skills that you have innately in you, and you're just going to bring them with this experience, bring them forward. Right. So
Yeah, definitely.
it was a
It
big
worked
part
out
of it.
big
Yeah,
time.
big part of it.
Switching gears a little, what was one of the, because I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs, but there was a few funny moments through, at least now, maybe not at the time. What was one of the funny moments or funniest moments through our cancer experience?
I always remember this.
Found?
It wasn't funny at the time, but when I think back about it, it's funny. There's a couple, but the one that I always remember, and it was like within, I think it was the first or second day in the Brampton Hospital here, and I stayed with you. I think the first day, I can't remember. I was sleeping in the bed beside you, or I was in the room with you. And I remember I was beside you or something, and we fell asleep or whatever. I'm pretty sure I was in a bed beside you or something. And it was the middle of the night, and they had you on a ward, a cancer ward with adults. It was all adults pretty much. And I remember in the middle of the night hearing like shuffling and waking up and rolling over. And there was a man, an older man, standing over top of me, staring, breathing in a diaper.
Yeah.
Like basically that's all I had on. And I was like, and of course I was startled because I was like half asleep. So I like screamed out and yelled, "Oh my God, oh my God." And then the nurse came in and took him and said, he's not well, obviously.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if he had dementia or something, and he kept getting lost. And apparently this was a regular routine for him. And because you were in a room that he was previously in, he was confused and he came in that room. So at the time it obviously startled me, right? But now I look back and it was, not funny for him, but it was kind of a funny moment, right?
Yeah.
And then another one I remember, obviously you're probably going to touch on the one, so I won't touch on that, but there was another one that I remember. You had gotten one of your lumbar punctures, and most of the time you're okay, but the one time you had it, and there was a couple of times in the hospital too, but the one time after you had it, you had residual headache for about a week. You couldn't lay down, you couldn't stand up. Every time you'd stand up, you'd have a severe headache, and you were pretty bad for that week.
Yeah.
So I remember taking you down, and they made us go to Toronto General first, and we had to spend, a couple of hours there and waiting for them to see what they were going to do with you. And then they were going to transfer you over to Princess Margaret to get it dealt with. And you were just miserable. You were obviously not feeling well, and understandably. But then you hadn't eaten all day. So I remember saying to you, do you want something to eat? I'll run across the street and get you something from the hospital. Yeah. I'll have some Swiss chalet, and then bringing it back. And you were completely miserable the whole day, for days before that too. And then as soon as I brought the food and put it down on the tray, you pretty much jumped up and just like, you had this big smile on your face. I have a picture of a big smile on your face, and you're like, you were just happy in that moment. So I laugh at that, because you went from completely miserable to all it took was a little bit of food, and you had this big grin on your face, right? So I mean, that
sounds about right.
Those little moments you had to take and enjoy, right? So that was that was kind of a funny thing, right? Just going from one extreme to the other.
Totally.
I guess you had to be there, but it was funny at the time.
No, it was. I agree. Forgot about that one. Jump to question 5, because I think it's the same. Yeah.
So tell me about yours, because you had a funny experience. What would you say yours are?
Yeah, I know one. I might as well tell 2. You told 2. The one that I've told people within Yak, I think a few people before, was again related to food. It was when I was in the hospital, and I think it may have also been Swiss chalet, because they had 2 types of. Sorry, the Swiss chalet one was a different one. This was when I had been basically told that I had a specific ailment, a specific environment. It was C. diff, that I couldn't eat any food. It was all through IV. It was all intravenous. So I was weaned off of food for at least a week. I know it was at least a week and a half. It may have been the week and a half.
Yeah, it was 10 days.
So at the end of that, I finally got the food menu. Like, they were like, we're going to introduce food for you again. Here's the food menu. So that was awesome. I was elated. So I was writing all the food options down. And I remember, I think for a specific day, it had been mac and cheese and something else, whether it was chicken nuggets or whatever. So I was waiting. It was the first meal the next day. and they drop the food off. Obviously, the cafeteria staff, they bring the food over at the tray and they leave it at the front door and they knock and then you pick it up. And so dad was in the room at the time and the knock came on the door and I sat up getting ready and he opens the door and there's silence. And he turns around with this this squeamish look on his face. And I look down and all there is on the tray is like an orange. It's like a tangerine or something. And I started losing it. I think I was screaming. There was words I can't share on the podcast here that I was saying. And he felt so bad. He went outside to look and he goes, there's nothing here. This kid hasn't eaten in 10 days. He's waiting for a meal. Yeah. He's got a friggin' tangerine. So that was one of the funnier moments after, because I know dad was probably chuckling under his breath, but at the time I was not having it. I'm thinking, give me something. I haven't eaten.
And I think he went to Swiss Chalet to get you something.
Yeah.
I went to Swiss Chalet actually, because I was there too. I went to Swiss Chalet to get you something.
Yeah, Swiss Chalet was a favorite, I think, clearly.
Yeah, because it was close by, right?
Yeah. So that was one. That was amazing. The second one was, I told you actually before the call, we were on the phone, and it was when my Hickman line, first few situations where the Hickman line, which is the line that was inserted into me, has two ports that you can like either insert saline from, and the other one you take blood out of. So as opposed to getting pricked every hospital visit. So a lot of the times you'd go in and they would take blood from that Hickman line, but it wouldn't work. So there was times where maybe it got stuck or blocked for some reason. So they would either say, can you raise your arms, or can you like sit up or breathe in? And a lot of times it worked. This particular time, nothing was working. I was trying everything. It was like 10 minutes in to taking blood, and they go, okay, get up and flap your arms up and down. And I'm like, are you serious? This is the middle of the cancer ward. So I'm sitting there flapping my arms, and I'm not having it. I'm mad because I hate that. The embarrassment was like whatever. And I look over at you and you have the camera rolling and you had filmed it. And I was like, you better delete that. So I don't know if that's still in the archive somewhere, but I looked over, you were having a great time. So they're all funny after the fact. At the time,
after the fact, yeah.
So those are two, I think, funny moments, and you got to laugh when you have the chance, and otherwise it's all for naught. So those are two of the really funny moments that I remember even to this day, I'd say.
Yeah, that was true.
Those are always good.
You got to look for those, right?
You have to. Otherwise, it's just there's so much you miss out on. So you talked earlier about why Yak was important to kind of get involved in from my perspective, but I'm actually genuinely curious because I don't remember how this did come about. I'm asking you honestly.
Yeah. So
how did you hear about Yak? Yeah.
So in the first day that you were at Princess Margaret was the Friday, the 21st. And that was just for the day. They brought you from Brampton by ambulance to do the biopsy, right? Yeah. And we had all these people coming in the room to talk to us while we were waiting. It was like a whole day long thing. And all these people were coming in to give us ideas, what's going to happen, resources that there were. And then that continued on once you got admitted into Princess Margaret. You were in Brampton for a bit and then Princess. So in Princess Margaret, the first few days, again, you had all these people coming in to give us like resources, right? Nurses.
Yeah.
There was, I think her name was
like
Laura.
Dentist even. Yeah. There was a lot of different, I said there was even like a dentist option.
Yeah, everybody was coming in, right? So I think her name was Laura, and she was an advocate kind of for the youth aspect of it. AYA, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it was her. And she was talking about, there was this organization called Yak. And again, they're throwing so much at you, right? So there was a time, and I kind of remembered about it. So I remember maybe a week or so into your treatment, things in the first few days, you're like, oh, it's not so bad. But then it got really bad, right? Like once you're on chemo and all these drugs they were giving you, you started to get really sick after about a few days. So I remember, I don't know, maybe a week into it or so, you weren't having it. You were like, I can't do this anymore. You were really visibly upset. Emotionally and everything. It was really tough. And you said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. I'm not doing it. And so I was worried, right? I was like, I can encourage you as much as I can. And Dad, we were doing everything we could, but you just weren't having it. So I remembered about this Yak situation. I looked a little bit further into it, and I got the girl that told me about it. And I said, please, can you reach out to the founder Because I kind of did a bit of research to realize I think he was 20 years out already of treatment. So I said, can you please reach out to him? Because I'm desperate. I'm really worried about my son. He keeps saying he wants to give up. You kept banging the bed all the time. I can't do it. You were getting really upset.
I know.
So, yeah, you were really upset. So I said, please reach out to the founder, and can you please ask him to call my son or reach out to my son somehow? Because I was really worried about you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my thing, is I needed somebody that had already gone through the experience of having cancer at that age that you were at roughly, and who was now still living his life and on the other side of it. So that was kind of what I did it, because I was really scared, right? Because again, there's that control thing, right? I can't control what you're going through. I can keep saying, Alex, you have to fight this, but you're ultimately the one that makes the decision, not me, right?
True.
So that was another way of my way of controlling it. What can I do to help him? So yeah, that was our first introduction to Yak. And then I remember I think Jeff emailed you, and I know you said, I can't, I don't want to talk to anybody. And your phone you weren't even looking at your phone those weeks, right? You refused. You said, I don't want to see what everyone's doing because I'm missing out. You weren't and then you weren't feeling well a lot of times. Mm-hmm. So I know Jeff did reach out to you, if I'm not mistaken, by email. Yeah. And you had told me I'm not ready right now. So, but then over time, you finally did end up talking to him, and then you went to the retreat and everything, and that kind of started from there, right? So
definitely. Yeah.
That
makes sense.
Right? So
now here we are.
Here we are, exactly. How important was our support for you, mine, the family support while you're going through treatment?
Yeah. Well, I think we just talked about Yak. Like, I wouldn't have known about Yak if it wasn't for you and a lot of different resources from the family. And you also just said, like, as much as I say I was positive, and I think I was more positive than a lot of people maybe early on, and as I was in the treatment, than some people might realize. But at the time, like early on, it was everyone, I think, who's gone through cancer has at least one moment where they're like, I just can't do this. And I think, had it not been for you, Dad, and the extended family, all my cousins and aunts and uncles, and my friends, who for the most part for this day, the ones that have stuck around are not going anywhere. For them to just say how inspirational that I was, or to just say, just keep your head down and focus, and to be there and support, whether it be doing certain events with me or just coming to visit me at the hospital early on, that makes the world of a difference, because it shows that you have people that are in your corner that are worth being here for, are worth living and fighting all of this stuff for. And so early on, that was obviously very apparent. But even as we continued on with you and Dad, especially, I have to give you guys more credit than anyone for just sitting with me and going through all the difficult times where I may have been on like steroids and just the worst possible person to be around at all times. For situations like that, it meant a lot, because I knew that, like, if I had to do it on my own, there'd probably be times where I was like, I just wouldn't do this anymore. I just didn't want to do it. So it was more so than anything, it was knowing, like, even, just my friends before I go into the hospital, coming over and doing like a poker night, like we would normally do years prior. And just coming over the Friday night, like when we found out,
before you went into,
that was the day before. Yeah, the day before. So even that, coming and just having fun and seeming like this was just normal. And we have poker nights. We had one a month ago with the same group of people. So to know that there's all those people in my corner that were like, we're here for you, like, you're gonna do fine and you're gonna beat this, and there's gonna be an after side to this where you're never gonna forget it, but you'll be in a position that hopefully it just means more to you than it's this horrible period in your life. It pushed me through, and I honestly, like, people, it's a cliche to say I couldn't have done it without people, but like you just alluded to it, like, I don't know if I would be able to push through if it weren't for you, Dad, and really everyone else being like, you have this, like, we're here for you. So more than I can really ever pay back, but it meant a lot. I think hopefully a lot of people realize that even though there's some times where it can be difficult when you want to be alone and you want to do things on your own, to have the people around you, it pays off, and it's like there's no way that you can get through it without at least somebody by your side at all times.
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah. So that is a great way to kind of transition to my next question. Some people don't have those support systems, or even if maybe they are the supporter, they don't have people that they know that have gone through it, so they don't know how to handle it. It's a new experience for even people just caregiving and supporting. So why did you find it important to kind of get involved with either YAC or other organizations like LLSC, as I don't know what the right term was, but being like a supporter and talking to other supporters and dedicating your time to speak to people?
With LLSC, it's called First Connection Peer Program.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. Again, when we first talked about my experience, the secondhand experience of whatever, of not having cancer, but going through it, it's you can't describe everything you go through. It's a lot, right? It's really difficult, whether it's for me, it was my child. And again, your child's not supposed to be sick, but then when it happens to you, your friends are there, your family's there, but they're not necessarily going through it, right? They're not going through what me and dad are going through, right? They don't have the same experience firsthand. So you go through a lot of emotions. There's all the stuff you go through without getting into a big detail. Having someone, and I came across LLSC a couple of months after you started treatment, when they told me they had a program where somebody could be connected to me that's going through it with a child around the same age, was a big thing for me. It was like, okay, let me talk to somebody that's going through it or has gone through it. The same way YAC, you guys are talking to people that have gone through it, right? To sort of understand it, right? So for me, it was like having that conversation with this person. It was the first conversation was 2 hours, and she literally was speaking everything. I was like, she talked a lot. She did more talking than I did at first to say her experience. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I feel this way. Oh my God, I feel this way. Oh my God, I don't know what to do about this. And there was the medical aspect of it, but there was also the emotional aspect for me and other stuff, right? So it was kind of even like a bit of a therapy thing, right? So you've got someone to talk to that understands it. So walking in your shoes, whatever. So that really helped me a lot. Like I had that support, and I stayed in touch with that woman pretty much for your whole treatment. Her son was, I think 3 or 4 years older than you, and he had a form of leukemia as well. His was a little bit different, but I guess having that was a huge part of how I was able to be there for you on a better way than, you know what I mean? Like I could offload some of my stuff, right? You need to offload some of that sometimes. So being able to offload that so I could be my best self for you. And obviously you don't want the person that you're caregiving or supporting to see what your struggles are, right? So having that was huge for me. So once the opportunity came and I knew how much it helped me, I wanted to be able to be that for somebody else. So LLSC asked me if I wanted to be a supporter, and I did that. We did a little course on that for a couple of hours, and I know they've paired me up with other mothers, and you just feel like I have information that I can talk to them, that I understand what they're going through. And I just had a woman a couple of weeks ago. I told you about the little 8-year-old, right? And the mother came over. I had some stuff for her, and her daughter's got leukemia and she's going through it. And I was just, we weren't connected through LLSC. I just happened to find out about her another way, and just having a conversation with her, she was like, oh my God, and how did you manage this? And how did you do that? She goes, oh my God, I've had nobody to talk to, that I'm trying to explain to my family how I feel about this. And they're telling me I should do this, this, and this, but they don't understand that I can't do these things because my daughter's sick. Right. So
totally.
It's just having that connection, that support of someone else. So I really wanted to be able to, I'm genuinely like to do that anyways for other people, right? Like to give back when I can, but this, just because it really impacted me so much, I think it was a big help for how I got through it with you. And I know how imperative it is to have that. So I felt I wanted to be able to give that to other people, it's important. Support is a huge aspect of a lot of stuff in life, and these big journeys, I really think it takes a village is what they say, right? It takes a village
Yeah.
for a lot
Yeah.
of
You
stuff,
can't
right?
do it on your own, whether you're a supporter or you're going
Yeah.
through it. You need
No one's a,
someone
no, yeah,
yourself to
no one's
talk
that
to.
strong to go through
Yeah,
these things alone.
for sure.
So yeah, that's why.
Agreed. Yeah.
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 That's why. So we did the funniest moment. Do you think the cancer experience actually changed you for the better?
Yes. It's weird. I would say everyone is probably going to have their own answer based on their own experience with cancer, because everyone's different. Now that I'm in a position where I am luckily enough in remission and I'm past that cancer experience where I'm in a better place mentally, physically, yes, 100%, because I wouldn't at all. I don't think any part of me would be the same today if I didn't have cancer, almost at all. The fact that I like sports and I joke around and stuff like that's never going to change. And the friends that I made beforehand. But I think, obviously I work with Canadian Cancer Society, assisting with YAC and doing all the different platforms. And a lot of the friends I met throughout my cancer experience at YAC or elsewhere, and being more confident to say, I feel good about what I know I'm good at in life and what I'm not good at in my maturity level. All of that stuff is a factor of cancer. And there's certain things that obviously I think affected me to this day still. Not being able to mature a little bit throughout my 20s earlier on. I think for the first few years after you finish cancer was hard to kind of get a grasp on who I was. So it took a lot more time to mature and understand who I am as a person. I think I'm still figuring it out for the most part, but I think at the end of the day, it gave me much more of a perspective on life and what I want it to mean for me. And the fact that I have like family and friends that are super close. What I'm doing as a career and as extracurriculars, things like this, it makes me feel good and I love doing it. And I know it's what I want to continue as a career in some capacity. So as much as it was very difficult at the time and it wasn't at all what I expected, I think I'm grateful for the whole experience. I think you almost have to be. You have to take the silver lining of anything. And as much as it was difficult, I think now it's a better situation that I'm through it because I've learned a lot from the experience, especially relating to who I am as a person. So I can say that that's probably my answer is yes. But I know maybe if someone doesn't have the same opinion, I think that's 100% understandable. You have to live with a new normal. But I'm happy with, happy with who I am kind of today because of what I went through, for sure.
Yeah, good. I
Yeah.
agree with you. Yeah, you grew a lot, I think, through that experience, and you had no choice, obviously, but you did grow a lot through that experience, right?
Yeah. You already kind of touched on it, but have you made any friends with other supporters that you've spoken with? Like you still have some good friends, or at least a few friends that you've spoken with.
I did keep in touch with, for most of your experience, I did keep in touch with the girl that I actually originally had support me. We kept in touch for quite a bit. And every once in a while on Facebook, we'll still keep in touch. How's your son? How's your son? Right. And yeah, I mean, some of the people that I've supported, you talk just for that time. But I did make a friend through when you were in Princess Margaret, a couple of doors over was another woman that was an older woman who had leukemia as well. And Dad started talking to them in the kitchen. If you remember, the kitchen was across the hall from you, right? And they were talking Dad's Italian, Dad's dialect, I think. And so they started talking. And then, because I was staying at the hospital with you, right? They got me a pullout, so I was sleeping there all the time. I got to know her again because the kitchen was right in front of your room, and she was always, cooking the Italian pasta and stuff for my mother-in-law when we get up, right? They were bringing her a lot of food from home. So I got to know the daughter of this woman, and we're still friends today,
Yep, I do.
So yeah, I mean, it's her, unfortunately, her mother passed away, but and although it was a little bit different in that it was her mother and it was my son, you still have that general experience, right? So we had bonded on that, but also very nice family. So yeah, I still have kept in touch. I've made friends with some people, and some, they're there just during that time. the one lady that supported me, we used to meet up for lunch once in a while. But again, we still keep in touch the odd time. But yeah, I've kept in touch for sure with one or two.
Definitely.
Because you have that bond, right?
Yeah, there's something to talk about. It's the support that you gained. It's like it brings you close to certain people because of it. Yeah.
And then, you know, you talk about not just that experience. I mean, you bond over that experience, but you know, we had some other things that were in common too, right? So
yeah,
you meet some nice people along the way, right? I mean, for years I was still keeping in touch with one of your nurses, remember? Like for many years. She came to the party I threw you when you were done treatment, right? So
yeah, I do.
I mean, we met some really wonderful people along the way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some great people out there. So yeah. Okay, let's see. What do we got for you? How is life going now for you?
Yeah, it's good. It's very good. I mean, yeah, I don't know. There's still a lot that I think is to be desired with me moving forward. I have a lot of hopefully plans moving forward in my life, but yeah, I'm very happy with where I'm at right now. I think all things considered, the world is in a very, very difficult place as we do this interview. But for my own self, knowing what I've gone through, and I think at the time in 2014 and 15, I had no anticipation of what my life was going to be like. It was turned upside down. I didn't know what I wanted to do as a career. Before even getting diagnosed, I had an idea, but it wasn't at all what I'm doing now, and I'm grateful for that. But I'm very happy with where I'm at right now. I think there's a lot of really cool things happening in my life that I'm happy about. I'm able to live in downtown Toronto, which is something I've always wanted to do. I have a lot of really great friends. Our family's amazing. We're in a great place as a family. And so for the most part, I'm very happy with where I'm at. And I think I do have to dedicate a lot of that to my support system, you guys, and everyone around me. But going through cancer gives you a life perspective. So it teaches you a lot about what to be grateful for and how to be happy. I don't think I'd ever meditate if it wasn't for cancer and you pestering me about it, but that's something I do every day, and writing and journaling. And so a lot of like reading, I used to like to read, but doing that a lot now. So all of the habits that I picked up a lot during treatment too really help with my day to day. So I think there's still a lot that I'd like to see in the future for me, but I think I'm on a really great track. So I'm very happy with how things are going for sure, I would say.
Yeah, I think the meditation and stuff is something that's a great life skill anyways, right? So
Totally.
that and yoga, that's, watching you do that, like that, those are some fun moments too, right? Watching you.
We've done yoga when I was living at home a couple of years ago. We were doing yoga sessions every morning.
Yeah.
So that was fun. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and that goes back to what you were saying about your cancer experience and what came out of it and stuff, right? And you picked up some skills that, will help you in life going forward for other things too, right? It doesn't just have to be for a cancer experience, right?
For sure.
It's changed you for sure. I mean, you already had that personality of being able to talk in front of people and stuff. So that, now it really brought that out in you more, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Just a few more questions here, but one of the last ones for you is, do you feel like the experience brought our family closer at the end of the day?
We were already close. I mean, I don't consider that cancer brought us closer. My family is everything to me, right? That's one of the most, well, it's the most important thing to me, right? You know that.
Yeah, totally.
So we were already close anyways, right? So I don't know if it could have brought us closer. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'm always going to be there for you. Dad's always going to be there for you. That's just the type of people that we are. So it brought us, I guess it did bring certain things, the family, the extended family too, right?
Big time.
There were times when, we needed them, and it was a phone call. I remember one time you were in the hospital, and you had an issue that they weren't sure what it was, and they kind of pulled me aside and said, this could be a serious thing. We're not going to be able to do anything because of the treatments he's on. If it is a torn part of your esophagus and stuff.
Yeah.
And again, we were like, oh my God, like, how do we were upset, right? And we didn't want you to know. And the doctors weren't, obviously, you knew there was a serious thing. You didn't know how serious. No. So, I picked up the phone and I called one of one of Dad's sisters, and they canceled their plans. I think they were out for dinner with friends, and they immediately came and sat with us. Just sometimes your supporters, they don't know what to say. They can't say the right things, but they just literally came to sit with all of us while we waited for the results with you. And we just talked about everything but what was going on, right? So it brings, I guess, again, we're close, but it does bring some aspects of another bit of a closeness, because you've gone through a little bit more serious things and you see how people really can rally around you, right? So
big time. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And there were other times like that too, right? So if it brought us closer, again, we were already close, but I guess in some aspects, of course, it does bring you closer. And there's things you see that maybe or go through that you wouldn't have to go through, but and sometimes it brings you closer than you want to be, right?
I'm sure every once in a while.
There may be some aspects of it that you don't want to have to about, but it is what it is, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
Do you think it brought us closer?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was times it was hard. I'm sure, being a family, at 20 is a tough age to be, I think, at home. Like, I was living in university. I was really getting along. So I think there was times where it was hard for all of us to be together, me, you, and Dad, really in one room. When no one's happy. I'm on steroids, I'm yelling, or I'm upset, or it's just a bad day for everyone. And I'm sure it was times where we weren't like in the best place as a family, but at the end of the day, I think, the positivity that came out of all of it, and now being so close, talking basically every day, and calling at least a few times a week, I think like, it's a good point. We were always close as a family, but I think there's certain parts that, you see the best and the worst parts of people's lives. So I think it helps to know where we all came from and how it all affected us. But I think it somewhat made it closer, but I think we were in a great place, like you said, to begin with. So it didn't really change things for the end, but I think it created a nice bond for sure.
Well, I think in some ways, as you're talking, I'm thinking too, like certain things as a parent, there's certain things you're not going to talk about with your kid too, right?
Yeah.
But there gets to a point where sometimes you have to have certain conversations, right? So you might be a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more open, right? There were things you might not have wanted to talk to me and Dad about at times, right?
Yeah.
To your parents, you want to talk to them about your friend. You want to talk to certain things to your friends about. But again, sometimes, your parents are there, so you're a little bit more vulnerable. And so in that aspect too, like, if you know what I'm saying, right? Like,
they do.
You know what I'm getting at? Like, you might talk about things that you might not normally have wanted to share because you're a teenager or you're 21 and you don't want to talk about this with your parents or whatever, right? So I guess in that aspect too, you kind of get to know maybe some of the thoughts and beliefs of that person a little bit more too, because you get more, I guess what I'm trying to say is you have some more serious conversations that you might not have had.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's a fair
Like
point.
talking, we talk meditation or whatever it is, right? A little bit more deeper than that too, right? So yeah, I think that's part of it too, as being closer in the sense, maybe you're a little bit more open or vulnerable that you might not have been before if you hadn't gone through this, I guess, if that makes sense.
It does. I think you're right. Totally.
Yeah. And that goes for your friends and family too, right? Conversations you might be shy to talk about or not want to talk about. That kind of forces you sometimes to think like what's important and talk about the things that are maybe more important that you might not have shared before that, right? So that just having certain conversations brings people closer too, right? So
yeah, I think you're right.
Sometimes having cancer forces you to deal with things and talk about things that you wouldn't have before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so can I ask you, what are your top 3 fruits?
Yeah, start with me.
That's your question, but
that's normally mine, but yeah, throw it at me. Well, I've never answered it really on I don't think on We Get It. So,
and what can I ask why that question first?
It's always been a question that I think it started, funny enough, talking to you about this. It always started as a great way to break the ice. I think for me, more in like a dating perspective, it's kind of a weird question to ask that you don't get asked a lot. So I think it originally was a way to ask people that I might be like interested in or dating, to kind of get the ball rolling in person. But then it became a question I used to just ask people that I wouldn't know. I love questions like randomly, like, If you had to eat this food for the rest of your life, what would it be? Or like just random questions that don't mean anything. So I find it's a cool way to just start a conversation. And I thought it's always unique. It catches people off guard. So I always like that type of question. You get to know people because they're not expecting that question. So that's probably why I ask it now. And sometimes it gets really good conversations going. So for me, it would be, in no particular order, I say pineapples is one of my favorite. Grapes, because I can eat as many grapes as is put in front of me.
Yeah, you love grapes.
Yeah. And I actually have those two fruits in the fridge right now. And watermelon would be my third, which is only depending on the season, because sometimes watermelon aren't the greatest. But if you have a good ripe one in the summer, that's definitely up there for sure.
True enough.
Yeah. What about you? What are your top three?
Is chocolate a fruit?
Yeah, you could put it on fruit, but I don't think that counts.
Yeah, well, there you go. Strawberries. I love strawberries with whipped cream, with chocolate. Yeah, dipped in chocolate's great. Pineapple. I love pineapple in the summer when it's ripe, but it has to be a good one, obviously. Nothing worse than cutting a pineapple up and then it's crappy
brown
inside.
spots.
Blueberries, maybe. I mean, blueberries, or actually altogether, strawberries, pineapple, and banana is fantastic.
That's a good right? One. Yeah.
I
good
love
combination. Yeah, if it's the fondue, it makes things better too.
Oh God, yeah, chocolate fondue is like the ultimate, and all those fruits with the fondue, strawberries, bananas.
Yeah, those all do the justice.
Pineapple, yeah.
Nice. Cool. Awesome. Well, Mom, that was great. I mean, it was almost an hour I think we hit, but that was a good conversation. So I really appreciate you joining me. I think a lot of people hopefully will get a lot out of it. And just to hear from the parent and caregiver and the person who's gone through cancer perspective, and I guess that dynamic. So thank you for joining. Thank you everyone else for listening. And if you have any questions, let me know about this. But Mom, again, appreciate you jumping on. For everyone watching.
Can I just say something? I just want to say thanks to Yak, because honestly, it was probably the best thing and the most important thing. Well, not the most important, but it was hugely important for me. So thanks to Yak and Jeff and everything they're doing, because it was instrumental in changing your mindset at a really rough time. And the support that they provide to you guys, I think, is just phenomenal. So I'm just so grateful for Yak, just because I see what it's done for you. And I had the opportunity to meet one of the people that you met at Yak. Remember when she came for the day? So I think it's tremendous what Yak is doing. So anyone that can get involved with Yak, as a supporter, I know you guys they're doing a little bit more with the supporters like us. We were invited to the Prime thing last year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just thanks to everyone at Yak, because I think what you guys are doing is just hats off to you. It's tremendous and it's fantastic. And as a parent, I'm so grateful that Yak has come into your life, and that Yak is there for all of the young adults. Because I researched a lot. I researched a lot of support for you at that age, and there wasn't anything. So Yak was a godsend. So thanks to Yak and everything. I just wanted to say that too.
No, that's a great way to end it. That's fine. I don't think they'll have any
to cut you off, but I really think
you
need to know how much, as a parent, how much it is to have that for our kids.
100%. So that's a great way to end it. Thanks to Yak, and thanks to you, and to all our listeners. Hope you enjoy this episode, and wait till next week for the next one. But other than that, have a great evening or day, everybody. We'll talk to you all later.
Talk to you later, buddy. Bye. Bye.